Sarah, let's do it. One, two, three. Happy Thanksgiving!
André, actually, let's say in Portuguese.
Do you think that they are going to like that?
Yes.
Okay, do it for us, Sarah.
1, 2, 3. Feliz Dia de Ação de Graças!
Yes, okay, my friends, probably this is the first time someone wishes you Happy Thanksgiving in Portuguese, but we are a small channel, we are a special channel, a special community, so it's different here. That said, Sarah, I think we both agree that we are thankful for them. But for real, my friends, thank you so much for all the support. We really appreciate all of you.
Yes.
That said, Sarah, we have a special video today, but ask them for the most important thing.
Guys, leave a like, thumbs up.
And if they subscribe.
You make our day.
Damn right. Link below. Let's go into the video.
As somebody who grew up 4,000 miles from my current home, the only frame of reference I had for the American life I now live was American TV and film. In the 80s, much like today, these infiltrated Britain in much the same way British music infiltrated America.
Okay.
As a child, I was in love with the Goonies, not to mention
love
Andy
that
from the
movie.
Goonies.
You saw that?
I watched Back to the Future.
Okay, I saw Back to the Future. The Goonies never.
47 times in the same week. And then at some point in the late 80s, I was introduced to a very specific American comedy. Now for context, you have to understand that back then, my dad used to go on business trips to London. And this was always quite exciting because it meant he'd return with a mystery VHS. Following a successful track record of delivering eye-popping entertainment, my dad apparently decided on a different approach with an American movie that I did not recognize. Planes, Trains and Automobiles, said my very English dad. It's about a bloke who's trying to get home for, I think they call it Thanksgiving. It's meant to be right funny. Given that
You know what? I wonder if anyone watching recognizes that movie.
Yeah.
Because some could be a random movie, I don't know, but...
I was expecting Karate Kid 2, my disappointment was palpable, and so the tape lay dormant until I was bored one Sunday afternoon. I put it on, and sure enough, my dad was right. It was funny. To the extent that my best friend and I used to copy the bit where Steve Martin says the F word 18 times. Sorry, Mum, if you're just learning about that. But after several watches, there was one question that kept popping into my head. What on earth is Thanksgiving? Well, 20 years later, after moving to the United States...
Okay, what is Thanksgiving, Sarah? Do you know?
I don't know.
I mean, you are aware of Thanksgiving, right?
Yes.
Because of movies also. But you know why they celebrate?
No, really, no.
I think the main reason nowadays is to have the family
Reunited?
reunited,
Yeah.
you know, be thankful for what they have, thankful for the people that are there with them. But I believe this is something that comes from from history. I think Native Americans
Oh, okay.
end up teaching, you know, I guess the British and the ones that end up, the immigrants that went to the US, how to cultivate vegetables, stuff like that. From what I understand.
Okay.
I saw a video years ago at this point. But a lot of Americans prefer Thanksgiving to
Christmas.
To Christmas.
Okay.
Is a beautiful this idea that being thankful for something is a beautiful concept, I think.
I found out firsthand, and it wasn't what I was expecting. The first surprise is that Thanksgiving wasn't simply another word for Christmas. And I know to Americans that might sound weird because Thanksgiving isn't Christmas. But the film gave me more than one...
Okay, but when I was a kid, I thought Thanksgiving was Christmas. I
Yeah.
thought it was a kind of the same thing
I thought it was a preparation
for the Christmas. It kind of is, if you think about it, like 1 month before, you know. So, but it's not a preparation. It's have its own meaning. But yeah, I also thought that.
reason to believe that it was. Firstly, they're driving around in lots of snow, which in Britain is a fairly rare event, but if it does occur, it usually does so in winter and not autumn. I have since realised and was reminded just the other day that in the American Midwest, thick snow in November, or Snowvember, is not uncommon.
He loves it. Look at him. He's so excited. You gonna run around, Arthur? You gonna run around?
Secondly, in the film, while
Okay,
Steve Martin...
Wait. It's November. Anyone watching is dealing with snow right now. If so, tell me the state you are watching me, my friends. Because I saw that end up snowing in New York.
Yeah. I heard that too.
Yeah, so... But Midwest maybe also snows a lot.
His wife is waiting for him to come home. I believe there's a quick shot of her lighting a candle, which we're not going to do right now because there's a cat here and I'll probably burn him. But that, in tandem with this winter feel, made it appear like a cheap Christmas card. Thirdly, Steve Martin's wife pulls from the oven a giant turkey, and that is not a euphemism. Turkey, of course, in Britain is mostly synonymous with the Christmas meal, and so this was a huge reason that I think for the first 26 years of my life, I thought Thanksgiving on the one hand and Christmas on the other were actually one and the same. But it turns out that not only is Thanksgiving not Christmas, it takes place in November, specifically the fourth Thursday in November. It didn't help.
Okay, so there is no specific date. Is the fourth Thursday, right?
Oh, okay.
You thought there was a specific date? I thought it was 25 of November because I thought it was 1 month exactly before Christmas, but it's not.
In November, specifically.
Sorry. Let's go back a bit.
I thought Thanksgiving on the one hand and Christmas on the other were actually one and the same. But it turns out that not only is Thanksgiving not Christmas, it takes place in November, specifically the fourth Thursday in November.
Okay.
It didn't
Fourth
help
Thursday.
that Steve Martin lived in a huge house in the Chicago suburbs, because that makes me think of one thing, Home Alone, which is a Christmas movie. Anyway, speaking of two films that featured the late great Sir Jonathan Candy, that brings us on to this. I didn't know it yet,
Canadians
but
celebrate Thanksgiving.
America was not alone in celebrating a holiday of this very name. I mean, cut me some slack, I barely knew that America did. Because as I've been doing this channel over the years, I've discovered that there are Canadians in the world, and they watch. Hello. And usually, whenever I do any kind of Thanksgiving themed content, I get those really polite comments that are along the lines of, Lawrence, you disgrace. You forgot about Canadian Thanksgiving again, so I'm inserting it into this video to appease you. John Candy, the greatest Canadian, after Bret the Hitman Hart, would not have celebrated Thanksgiving the same day as his character in Planes, Trains and Automobiles, because it turns out that Canada does theirs on the second Monday in October. And given that Canada also does Boxing Day, if you took all of the North American holidays, the holiday season would never end. It would be 3 solid months of eating and vomiting. Before I knew better, I never once questioned the inherent meaning of Thanksgiving, that we gather to celebrate the birth of our Lord Jesus Christ and open lots of presents. But during my first Thanksgiving party, which happened about 2 weeks after I moved to the United States, it became clear at that point that this was in addition to Christmas, and so I was quickly onto the business of eating, but also asking these friends and family members at the table, what's all this about? And this was actually at a college campus, so for them it was about getting drunk. But, you know, after a few solid pints, I managed to get out of them that the day is all about giving thanks. The clue is in the name. It's about giving thanks for this bountiful harvest of food that we have at this table, or just in America. I'm not going to do a deep dive on the history of this, but what I am going to do is just give you my observation of how Americans display that gratitude. I don't think I've been to a single Thanksgiving family meal with her family and not sat there while another family member, usually a bloke, I don't know why that is, says, let's say grace. So I do. Grace. And at that point, everybody in the room looks at me and says, shut up, you clown. And they, you know, basically thank the Lord for all of this wonderful food that we are about to eat to excess. But I think it's more than that, because I think that...
Okay, I forgot to say that. Yeah, they in America, of course, they thank God, of course. I guess that goes without saying. But is also being thankful for everything that they have in their life. But that comes from God. So.
Something that I suppose we never got to see in Planes, Trains and Automobiles is the actual event, the sitting round the table, because Thanksgiving is a joyous occasion, and I don't know that that's just because people feel extra thankful that day, or if it's this. It's a holiday with very little pressure. Unless you're the one cooking all the food, then there's a lot of pressure. But unlike Christmas, you don't have to buy presents for anybody, so that's nice. And because it falls on a Thursday, some employers might even give their employees the Friday off, so therefore you get a 4-day weekend, which is a bloody rare thing in America. In Britain, this exact scenario plays out if indeed Christmas and Boxing Day are immediately before or immediately after the weekend. In either case, in my experience, you'll probably spend those 4 days eating turkey sandwiches. The basic premise of Planes, Trains and Automobiles is, of course, a send-up of actual US travel patterns around Thanksgiving. According to AAA, around 80 million Americans travel at least 50 miles at this time of year, and routine.
Okay, now actually I want to see that movie. But this makes a lot of sense to me because so many states in America, for sure, there is people that have families that have family members that are in different states. So.
I'm one of them. Suppose that's what happens when you start your American life in Indiana and then move to Chicago and leave behind a lot of family members that you inherited. Well, this kind of thing, I've come to find, is the reality for a lot of Americans. And so, like Steve Martin's character, they might use all manner of transport to try to get where they need to go. Now, admittedly, most of the time we will drive those hundreds of miles in a car. But one time when we were less rich, we used Megabus, and there was something profoundly disappointing about that. It's that the people on the bus didn't start singing the theme tune to the Flintstones, which happens in Planes, Trains and Automobiles.
Flintstones, meet the Flintstones.
Now in hindsight, this is sort of weird because if anyone's going to break out into song, it is Americans.
Okay, anyone actually knows, my friends, if you ever saw that movie, tell us if it's worth us to watch, because it seems fun actually.
I pointed out in my recent road trip video that this is a fairly common occurrence with inside the walls of a car. Do cars have walls? I don't know. But in my experience, this sort of thing doesn't happen on buses. Largely because nobody wants to be there and we're all terrified of strangers. Happy holidays. But when it comes to travelling for the holidays, I think Planes, Trains and Automobiles did get one thing right. And that's that American trains are unreliable. What I'm about to say is a spoiler for a 37-year-old film. So if you haven't seen Planes, Trains and Automobiles, put me on mute for 20 seconds and don't be tempted to lip read. At the end of the movie, Steve Martin takes a lonely John Candy back to his huge house in the Chicago suburbs. And when they get there, the family is so happy to see them. Paul Young is playing in the background and it's just a rousing finish to the film. There's just one problem. Where are the other 20 people, Steve? I mean, I know you turned up late, so maybe they all left. But my experience is if you've got a house as big as that, you'll have cousins, second cousins, some guy named Todd that nobody recognizes. Because Americans, much more than the British, like to go all out when it comes to invitations. On the one hand, it can be overwhelming for introverts such as myself. On the other, it does give me more people to turn to when my wife's cousin Chad tries to get me to look at his comic collection. Had I known the full extent of a Thanksgiving meal, I might have overcome my Christmas confusion much sooner. But it seems to me that Steve Martin's wife's turkey, again, not a euphemism, was in fact a ruse. Because when you take into account some of the other food items that are common at a Thanksgiving dinner table, there's not
The food seems... Oh, man.
really a lot of crossover with British Christmas at all. Firstly, there's no Christmas pudding, obviously. And instead of mince pies, you have one of either pecan pie, my favourite, pumpkin pie made out of real pumpkins and not whatever the hell this...
We tried both of those in America.
Yeah.
Pecan pie, I believe pecan pie is the best pie that you guys have. But the one that surprised me a lot, because the look was not that great for me, but pumpkin pie was so damn good also in America. Well,
travesty is from time.
I honestly thought the worst one was apple pie.
Yeah.
And it's the most famous. But pecan pie and pumpkin pie, my friends, I was blown away, honestly.
Target, or sweet potato pie, or about 100 other pies. And sure, as I told YouTube sensation Evan Edinger the other day, you know, I gave up added sugar, I'm not going to eat this with you. But back when I wasn't, pies contribute heavily to making this my favourite of the American holidays. And then there's the sides. I remember sitting around a table not dissimilar to this, and my wife said, I want stuffing, which left me mortified until I realised she meant the food. So I passed her stuffing, to which she said, that's not stuffing, that's oyster dressing. The stuffing is on the far side of the table. Well, they look the same to me. What is this? I've never heard of oyster dressing. Well, it turns out I should have. Oyster dressing, a bread-filled dish typically enjoyed in the South and by at least one family in the Midwest, actually originated in Britain. The first known reference to oyster dressing can be found in a 1685 edition of The Accomplished, a cookery book by the English chef Robert May. Anyway, the recipe, then a mixture of oysters, bacon, herbs and spices, was brought to North America by British colonists, first showing up in American print more than a century later in Amelia Simmons' American Cookery. Suffice to say, the stuffing or dressing that I've had in the United States is usually quite a lot different to the stuffing that I had in Britain. Partly that comes down to texture, but secondarily, it comes down to the shape. Back in Britain where I come from, it was not uncommon to have stuffing balls, which that is a euphemism. However, in the US, stuffing is often not as congealed, a sort of bread-heavy free-for-all inside a casserole dish, themselves more prevalent in US kitchens than British ones. I'm probably generalizing heavily with everything I've said in this video, but for the most part, That's been my experience. Oh, it's funny how life works out. 35 years after I first laid eyes on planes, trains, and automobiles, I've come to appreciate it on a level my childhood brain couldn't have comprehended. Not only have the things listed in this video become annually ingrained into my life, but as fate would have it, I too now live in a suburb of Chicago. It's just that my house is marginally
he also
smaller
lives
than
in
Steve
Chicago,
Martin's. And so I suppose that I'm thankful for life imitating art. But I'm also thankful for my late father for deciding in a moment of clarity not to buy Karate Kid 2. So let me know in the comments what you're thankful for, and until next time.
Okay, my friend, show him all the love. The message at the end was beautiful, because imagine if he, because life is like that. Imagine if instead of that movie about America, about Thanksgiving,
Exactly.
he got the Karate Kid too. You know, it's kind of crazy. Who knows? His life could be different. I guess they call that the butterfly effect. You know,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
just a small thing can change so much. But yeah, my friends, thank you so much. I hope you guys have an amazing Thanksgiving if you are watching this. And Sarah, any final words?
Thank you guys for everything.
We are thankful to have
Yeah.
all of you, my friends. So thank you so much.